as I mentioned before, I'm Katie Hoffman, and I will be talking to you guys tonight about cook once, eat twice. So this isn't just having leftovers. It's not just pulling out whatever you had on Monday on Thursday, reheating it, which is what my family's doing tonight, and calling that dinner. This is about transforming those leftovers. In my house, my dad hates leftovers. So when I was growing up, it was kind of the unwritten rule that we did not have leftovers. He just didn't do the whole reheat and eat again thing. I think he ate too many of them as a kid, so he was not into leftovers anymore. So my mom had to be really creative and come up with ways to make it something new again. So that's the concept of cook once, eat twice. It's a little different than freezer meals. It's not cook a big batch and freeze ahead, although you can do this with some of the recipes, and I'll tell you how. But it's more of just how to plan out your week strategically. I kind of like that. Makes me feel really smart, like I'm strategically planning dinner for the week. So menu planning for this is an important skill, but it just gives you some options and some variability in your dinner without having to do a lot of extra work to make things quick and easy. So in your purple handouts, your last one in the folders, this stapled piece has a really great article I found that kind of explains the concept and some of the food safety tips you need to be aware of when you're cooking once and eating twice. Of course, you're using food that's already been cooked, so you need to make sure you cool it down properly and you get it in the fridge and you store it properly. I brought Tupperware as a door prize to help you do that, so hopefully someone will get to take that home and try out the Tupperware with these recipes, but gives you some tips on that, and then it also gives really excellent examples of what we're talking about with cooking once and eating twice. For example, they have chicken and turkey or rice, and so with your chicken, you can have the chicken breast, eat it as a chicken breast one night for dinner. Later on the week, slice it up, put it on a salad, serve it with some Caesar dressing, and you have a totally different meal, but it's still chicken. So there's some options there, like Lori was saying, to pick recipes with similar ingredients. This is kind of the same concept. So you're going to be reusing your ingredient. What's cool about cooking once and eating twice is we oftentimes get stuck in the, well, this was a main dish now, so it has to be a main dish later, or it was a side dish now, so it has to be a side dish later. But there's lots of other options and ways to mix it up. So you need to just kind of be creative when you're thinking cook once, eat twice. So the second part of your handout, I do have some ideas and some recipes. Now, I will give a disclaimer. Recipes are merely guidelines for me. I am not a follow recipe to the T kind of a gal. But I did make a very good attempt at putting down what actual measurements of stuff I might be putting in things when I'm making them. Because my mother-in-law is one of those people that, like, a cup means a cup. It's not that much. So there is some recipes in here, but again, these are guidelines because oftentimes you're not in control of how many leftovers you're going to have. You know, maybe it was like awesome spaghetti night and everybody ate a ton of it and you don't have that much sauce left or something like that. So these things are flexible depending on the amount of leftovers that you have. So for example, I have spaghetti pie. That's the recipe I'm going to be demonstrating for you guys tonight, and it's also in the oven and looking bubbly and fabulous. So this is a recipe that I ate a ton when I was a kid. It's my husband's favorite cook once, eat twice. He actually would like me to just skip the spaghetti part and get right to the spaghetti pie part, which my mother did spoil him this summer doing that very thing, and now he's sure it's possible. So there is a slight warning to the spaghetti pie. It is addictive. So the next recipe, though, is barbecue pork enchiladas. Now, I get a lot of weird looks when I tell people this, but oftentimes, well, and I do a lot of fundraisers with different events, so I'll come home with a Ziploc baggie of barbecued pork, and you can only eat so many barbecued pork sandwiches. You're kind of over it after a couple of days. So another way to mix that up is to use them in enchiladas. Now, before you freak out thinking barbecue sauce and enchiladas, it adds a really great smoky flavor and a really great sweetness to the enchiladas. So if you're using a red sauce enchilada sauce, they are fabulous. My family really loves them, so it's a great way to mix it up. And barbecue sauce on either pork or beef freezes really wonderfully because it's got a lot of sugars in it, so it freezes up really nice. It keeps really well, and this is a great way to mix up some of those leftovers into something totally different. The back side has ham and cheese casserole. Now, this is your basic cheesy potato. A lot of people have different names for the basic cheesy potato recipe, but this is your basic cheesy potato, and you throw ham in it. These recipes are really good if you have a large family and you want to just make life easier on you as you're cooking, or if you have a small family. They say eternity is 2 people and a ham. So my husband and I have small kids at home. They don't eat a lot, so when we cook a ham, it's like we're going to be eating ham for a while, so you got to come up with a lot of ways to eat ham. You get breakfast, lunch, dinner, lots of ways to eat ham. So here's an example of using a main dish and a side dish, cheesy potatoes, but you're turning it into a one-pot meal by adding peas and the ham. Suddenly you've got your meat, your vegetables, and your potatoes right there all in one dish, and that's something that's super easy to freeze. Make ahead and freeze, and you can just pull it out and warm it up, or you can make it that night too. It's a pretty quick, easy recipe. So there's an example. At the bottom, I know holiday season is coming up, and people are going to be having leftovers. Usually, depends, but usually have some leftovers. So I have some ideas for things to do with roast chicken and turkey or ham, and my favorite, mashed potatoes. Believe it or not, you can reuse your mashed potatoes. I didn't add the recipe for potato pancakes. A lot of people don't really have ever had those, but potato pancakes, just fry your mashed potatoes on a griddle. It's really delicious. You can make it as a dinner or a breakfast food. You can also use it as a base for, like, say, Laura's pot pie recipe, but instead of putting crust on the top, pour it over your leftover mashed potatoes. That makes it a main dish, a way to mix it up, or use a condensed soup or stew in a can to make it super easy on yourself. So there's lots of ways that you can cook once and eat twice. So spaghetti pie, I gave you my caveat that I don't always follow directions with my recipes, so this will be a menagerie, a general idea of how much stuff you need to have. It's always a good idea to pan your pie plate because things like to stick when you put them in the oven, so any nonstick cooking spray is good. I have my leftover noodles here. I cooked these last night. They've been in the fridge and my egg. When I mix them up, I like to kind of chop the noodles up a little bit. It makes them more bite-sized. Your pie will cut a lot better, and it'll serve a lot better. Easier to eat, especially if you got little kids trying to get a bite of it. You've seen them try to wrestle down a spaghetti noodle. It's entertaining, but they don't get much in their mouth. So you do want to wrestle those down a little bit. I do recommend as a tip to pop them in the microwave to get them a little soft. However, Lori was bogarting the microwave, so these aren't warmed. She's cooking her snacks, so we won't say anything. But so it's better to have them a little bit warm. What's great about this is right after you are done with dinner, while they're still warm and you're cleaning up your leftovers, you can just throw them in a pie plate and have them ready to go. So you don't even have to worry about reheating them again. So you're going to make your crust with this. The egg helps hold it together to kind of make it a crust on your pie. I have a lot of noodles. I got really excited last night while I was boiling them. We even had spaghetti last night. My husband's waiting for the pie part, so I better take him some noodles home. So like I said, general idea of how many noodles you need in there, but you want to make a good crust. It all depends on how many noodles you have left over. Seems like to me I always end up with way too much of one or the other, so it doesn't really matter. It's pretty fluid. Then also you're going to, next layer in your pie is going to be sour cream. This makes it super creamy, gives it a little bit of tang, a little bit of bite, really holds it together. You're just going to glop your sour cream on. You can throw your pie crust in the fridge or freezer to kind of stiffen up a little bit before you put the sour cream on. It's not necessary, but it does make it a little bit easier to smooth on. So if you have a chance, you can do that, but you don't have to. You don't have to worry about it really being too pretty. No one's going to see this part. And a lot of recipes for spaghetti pie, we'll just mix the sour cream right in with the noodles. So doesn't really matter. Again, just make sure and cover your pie. The recipe amount isn't quite as important. It's just making sure you cover those noodles. You can also make this in a 13 by 9. So then of course you'll need a little bit more ingredient. And then you just pour your sauce on top and spread it out. Add your cheese. And then you will throw that baby in a 350-degree oven. I like to cover mine in tin foil until the last 15 minutes or so and let my cheese kind of get a nice little browning on it. But that is ice cream pie. Well, I can do that too, but that's another mealtime inspiration. Spaghetti pie, we don't have that for dessert today, but we'll be able to taste test that. Does anybody have any questions?